Hi, welcome back to Tea Time with Allie and
Angelique.
So, we don't have tea bags today. We used loose leaf tea. So, we looked up some different things.
If you were me, you looked up stupid hippie quotes. What'd you look up?
I looked up stupid hippie tea bag quotes.
So what I found is a quote by Thomas Carlyle, and it says, "History, after all, is the true poetry."
Yeah, it's pretty on par.
For exactly what I looked up.
Mine was not as on par as it normally is with the actual tea bag, but I thought it was funny.
It is quite funny.
It says, "A woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water." It's Eleanor Roosevelt. It's a pretty hippy-dippy.
Yeah, it's pretty out there. Anyway, it's nighttime, but I'm using my morning pumpkin because this is the last pot video. Last video before Advent begins.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be the last time I could use my morning pumpkin mug. So
switching to Christmas mug.
woo! So I need to take down the leaves,
Yeah.
but not today, or at least not this moment.
Are you not gonna take them down right now? I thought that's what we did, or we're doing on this episode.
Oh, okay. Now I'll take them down real quick. Give me just 1 second. Listen,
The plan.
listen. You know me. I'll beat a joke into the ground and then 6 feet further. It's fine.
We're not talking about anything today. We're watching Angelique take the leaves down.
You're gonna watch me take down our fall decorations so that we can put up Christmas. Anyway, that's not really what we're talking about. I know that you know that, but just so you know, we're actually gonna talk about a very difficult topic. Vulnerability.
Wah, wah.
So Allie, what's it mean to be vulnerable?
So vulnerability is letting those parts of you that you don't like about yourself show to other people, basically. And it's really hard.
Super hard.
I think that's one of the reasons that like dating is so difficult, is because like you could show all your vulnerabilities to someone and then turn around and they leave, you know?
And then you just start all over again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Then you have to start all over again if you feel like that's the calling that you have to your vocation, or like what vocation you're called to. So like it's just a really difficult thing to do. You could be vulnerable with a friend and they could turn around and use that vulnerability
Against you.
Yeah. I've experienced that in the past before, where like, you know, there's been a time when I was vulnerable and with friends, and they knew a lot of things about me, and I don't know if it was even intentional or not, but they used those things to make me feel like it was all my fault that we were not on the same page, or that's how I felt, you know?
Yeah, and that's the hardest part about being vulnerable for me, is that I'm so afraid it's going to be thrown back at me that I struggle to share. But it's really hard to be vulnerable. And you got to do that.
You know, I also think counseling, like the idea of going into counseling before I did it, that's one of the things that was really hard for me, was I didn't want to tell somebody all of these things about myself, like the things that I always hide or the things I mask, because it is so, like, the things I hate about myself.
And like the world we live in treats it like oh, you should be ashamed of that. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you're shameful of things that you can't control, it makes being vulnerable nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So
For sure. I don't know, there's definitely things that like you don't want to share with other people. Yeah. And like I think we're at a point in our friendship where like I literally am just like, I need you to not judge me for this. But guess what I did today?
Yeah, I feel like I'm very vulnerable with you, but I'm not good at being vulnerable with anyone else. Or like I'm vulnerable with people I'm super close with, but like I'm not trusting enough to be vulnerable with just one.
I've gotten better about it in the past year, I would say.
I'm not.
I think I'm
there yet.
more of an open book than I used to be.
Yeah.
Like I'm definitely, I think actually going on Dad's podcast and giving like my testimony, personal story, whatever you want to call it, kind of like opened me up to like, oh, you know what? Like vulnerability and sharing it with other people, it's scary, but it's not a bad thing. Because let's say somebody does use your vulnerability against you. What does that turn into? Humility.
Fair enough.
So like you get humbled, you know?
And you know, humility is up there in the virtues. It's just, it can be really hard. And if you're finding it really hard, try to have small moments of vulnerability and build.
Yeah,
because that's definitely how I do it.
And we're not saying go pick a random stranger on the street and tell them your deepest, darkest secrets.
Please don't share with strangers.
No, we're saying like if you find yourself to be a very guarded person, somebody who's not really willing to like let those things out, like the closest person you're to, whether it be your mom, your dad, your sibling, friend, significant other, your roommate. I mean, I think we're friends.
Yes, but you know what I mean. You're definitely the easiest person for me to be vulnerable with, which is weird because I used to never be vulnerable with anybody. I'm one of those people that like, I don't share much, but when I do, it's too much and I feel really bad about it.
And there are some times when I accidentally say something I shouldn't have, and it has and she has an existential crisis.
Because sometimes that happens. She'll make an observation about something that I'll be vulnerable with, and I hadn't put two and two together. And then I focus too long on it. And it gets to be a bad thing, maybe. Not really.
Well, so
it's always good, though.
I almost worry that I just, like, I have trouble around Angelique and the other person I did this to. I have trouble, like, not saying the things that come to my mind. And so, like, I'll, like, make an observation in my head, and I'll just say it out loud. And I did that to you, and then I did it to somebody else a couple weeks after that once.
Yeah,
crushing it.
I mean, it's never, and they're not bad observations. They're typically right on point. But I'm not usually ready for the observation that she makes. And then I have to sit with it because I can't just process immediately. So sometimes it can be rough whenever that happens. But
this right here, vulnerability.
Yeah.
You're being a little vulnerable right now.
Just a hair.
Just a hair. We're not like.
That's about as far as
again, like don't go spewing your soul to everybody on the internet.
Please don't tell the internet your problems.
Like I shared very surface level, maybe not surface level. Like I was a little bit more open than surface level, but like a lot of what I said in my podcast episode or I've said on here, it's not even scratching the surface of the like deep down, right?
Oh,
so
of
like
course not.
it's you know your audience. It's one of those things like whenever you take a speech class or something, you have to know your audience, right? Yeah. And so like if you're in a crowd of people, it's not the time to sit there and like have a really deep conversation with somebody.
Oh no, because people are eavesdropping 100%.
If you're making a YouTube video or a podcast episode, like yes, be deep and be vulnerable, but like there are still some things that like are meant for the people you have close relation with.
Mm-hmm.
So
like you'll smile at everyone, but you're not gonna hug everybody, and you're certainly not gonna hold everybody's hand. There's definitely not. There's quite a few people you're not willing to kiss. Like you gotta like level your vulnerability that way.
What are you talking about?
Think about it.
I do that with everybody.
You kiss everybody around the mouth. Like, ah. Yeah, that's why you I've had COVID many a time, you know? It's fine.
Only twice.
Just mind your business. When you meet Allie, just be prepared for the biggest, wettest kiss right on the mouth.
Look, I make everyone's day.
Oh, do you?
I'm joking.
Of course. But, like, think about it that way. Like, you're not going to kiss every person you ever meet. You're not going to hug every person you ever meet. You probably won't handshake every person you ever meet. You got to be vulnerable in layers. Like just layer your vulnerability. Like, don't go ham on some stranger, because if you tell a stranger way too much, they're not gonna wanna probably talk to you again, because they're gonna think you're a crazy person.
Yeah, it's like, think about it this way. If you're dating someone, right? On the first date, do you go in and say, like, I'm trying to think of something that's like really deep. That didn't happen to me.
That didn't happen to you. Like, are you gonna walk in on your first date and be like, yeah, so I'm a terrible driver and I crash my car every time I get behind the wheel. Like, you're not gonna tell a stranger that. I feel like there are people who are that bad.
But I just...
You're not gonna tell everybody you're that bad at driving, right? Right.
But, like, yeah, I guess.
Like, I'm not gonna walk up to a stranger and be like, hey, I'm about to get behind the wheel of my car, but don't worry, I'll probably crash and like 6 people on the way. Like,
Yeah.
You wouldn't just say that.
I guess, like, I was trying to give the example of, like, you're on a first date.
No, I'm trying
and you're
to
not
be
gonna
funny
there,
because
yeah.
I don't want it to be real.
Yeah, I guess. But, like, on a first date, you're not going to sit there and go in there and be like, you know what, I have this wound from childhood because of this, and this is how I resolved it, or this is how I'm still working on it. Like, you're not going to do that on a first date.
Yeah, you wouldn't be dropping trauma.
Yeah, don't
if you trauma dump on strangers, they're not going to want to talk to you anymore.
Exactly. So, like, so just like a first date, when you first meet somebody, like, friendship or otherwise, like, you're not going to sit there and tell them your whole life story.
Yeah,
but
like, please don't do that.
As you get to know people, open yourself up a little bit more. Like, I didn't tell Angelique everything about me until, like, way later.
Yeah. Same. Sometimes I'm still accidentally saying stuff I've never said before. I guess I shouldn't say accidentally. Sometimes I say things and be like, oh, I never told you that before.
Yep. Anyway.
So.
Vulnerability. It's scary.
But necessary.
But freeing.
Yeah, it's definitely freeing.
Because it's like going to confession. Like,
confession.
Think about it. So when you go to confession, you sit there and you're the most vulnerable you have ever been, right?
Yeah, because
you're telling somebody all the bad things you did.
You're saying it out loud to another human being.
Owning up to those sins, right?
Granted, he's in the place of Christ, but still.
Yeah, he's a human being. And so you're going into that confessional intentionally and being vulnerable, right? And, like, I'm not saying go tell everybody your sins.
Yeah.
Not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the vulnerability and the way that you share that piece of yourself in the confessional, share other pieces of yourself with other people as you get to know them. Confession is a vulnerability.
100%.
For show. And, like,
my
I
true
think that one
voice.
is scarier. It's one of the scariest because, like, yes, the priest is in the place of Christ. And
what if he's judging you?
Well, I've heard they forget your sins anyway.
Yeah,
but
they don't remember.
Who's to say that, like,
There's
that
not a
happens
list.
every time? Yeah. Or, like, they're not going to go out and share it. Like, they're also people, too. So, like, there is a vulnerability and a trust there that you're putting into someone, I'm sorry, that you don't necessarily have that deep relationship with.
Yeah, because usually you're not, like, besties with your priest. Because
usually. Some people are.
Some people like it. Anyway, yeah, like, usually you're not talking to your priest about deep stuff, just, like, in general. Like, usually when you're sharing deep stuff, it's behind the confessional.
For sure.
So,
be vulnerable, but be cautious about your vulnerability.
But be willing to be vulnerable
because
with those you love.
You have to have a balance between guarding your heart and letting people in.
Yeah. Because, when you let people in, they they let you in too.
And they're people. And you know what? None of us are perfect, and we all make mistakes sometimes.
And the best way to help somebody to heaven is to know their heart. So, share your heart, but only with people you trust.
It's a pretty good video.
Pretty good
video. So
we like it.
Yeah,
some people
like it. Speaking of that, you should like this video.
Anyway,
hey everyone.
As you could probably tell because of the fall leaves in the background, this is the episode we recorded.
And the lighting is different.
Yes. This is the episode we recorded and then realized we needed to do Immaculate Conception instead.
So you got vulnerability today.
So we're going to go ahead and tell you to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you always know when we post. Listen to the podcast.
Obviously, we didn't do bubblegum because we're done with bubblegum,
So,
wah wah.
Well, who's sad about it, really?
I mean, not us.
Not us. Anyway, do all the YouTube things. Comment if you have any questions or concerns or smart aleck remarks. We're literally willing to read those. If you have any ideas for episodes you'd like to see, like vulnerability, because, you know, we want to talk about stuff you want to hear. That's important for us. So go ahead and drop the comments below, as Allison has been excitedly pointing. Do all these things because we are dying to be influencers. So keep striving towards likeness, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.